everyone, welcome to today's live, and today's topic is already above the live. So we're going to be talking about why it's important for parents in Great Britain and in Africa to legally leave their businesses for their children. Now, yesterday's live I talked about, the importance of building businesses that goes beyond us as parents. So today I'm going to talk about why it's important to have your assets legally documented for your to be left for your children, which child gets what, and when. Okay. Now, in Great Britain, the reason why parents who are in Great Britain, like myself, to leave businesses legally for our children is because anything that you don't put in your will and then put in a trust for your children, the government will take it. Okay? The government will take it and sell it and use that money for themselves, and your children will be left with no assets for their life. Okay? No matter how much how big your business was or how small it was, as long as it's a business that is a viable business, a registered company and everything, like the one behind me, they will take and liquidate all the assets and take that cash. If it's a property business, they will take the houses or the apartments and whatever. They'll sell it and they'll take the cash and spend it. Okay? So you need to make sure, if it's a farm, they'll take it, they'll sell the farm, sell all the animals, sell everything that is there pertaining to the farm business, and they'll take the cash. That is the UK, right? But if you leave it in a will and in a trust, your children would get it, even though they'll charge them inheritance tax. It wouldn't be. There will be periods, especially with companies. There will be periods where they wouldn't be charged inheritance tax as long as they continue running that business. There'll be certain periods within the year where they wouldn't be charged inheritance tax. Okay? The government wouldn't charge them inheritance tax for a certain period of time. It's called inheritance tax relief. Okay? So you need to make sure that you put that before you pass away, you put that in writing, and you put that in a trust legally. It's not enough to just say it to your children, this is by word of mouth, this is what I'm leaving for you, and then you don't document it. It's not enough, because once you pass away, there is no evidence of what you said. There is no legally binding agreement. In Africa, on the other hand, there are laws. I found Uganda because that's the area that's the part of Africa that I'm going to be talking about in these videos. You can go and search the laws for other African countries. Now, I've just downloaded a whole PDF document, which is quite long to obviously read, but it's an eye-opener. It explains a lot as to what I saw even in my own family. Basically, in this document, the old law to do with inheritance in Uganda was that if for example the father of the children passed away and you were married, right, what would happen is that your male relatives would come and take your children plus all your properties, okay, and leave your wife with nothing. Absolutely nothing. She'll be left destitute. Okay? Or in the other scenario, they'll take all your properties, leave your children to go with other relatives, and leave your wife with nothing, with no ability to take care of herself or the children. Okay? And then if you had daughters, they would marry them off. And if they were in school, the mom would then take them out of school and make them go and work, so that the money that they would get is what she would use to look after them. And that explained a lot, because okay, I can't share that here, but it explained a lot. It made me understand, like, close to home. Okay, it made me understand why that happens. However, that law has now changed. There is now a new law. So if you're in Uganda and you're a parent and you're an entrepreneur, like you run a business, whether it's a boutique, whether it's a farm business, any type of business that you do, and you have other assets from that business, make sure that you look at the document to do with inheritance. Okay, because now the new inheritance law in Uganda says that the what's it called, the parent. So for example, if the husband passes away or the wife passes away, and like you own the business, that parent would, the remaining parent would take 50% of the assets and the business, okay, combined, and then the relatives of the deceased, okay, which is called the lineal relatives, which is the aunties, the uncles, the brothers, the sisters, the mom, the dad, they'll take, I believe, 41%. Yeah, 41%. It was 75 before, but they'll take 41%. And then your children would only have 9% left to them. Only 9% left to them. So if it wasn't a big business with different assets, your children will be left with practically next to nothing, like 9%. It's better than nothing, but still. But then it's, if the other parent has the 50%, I suppose they would use that to take care of your children. But in the case where both of you have passed away, you still have to make sure that your children are aware of that law, so they know what is legally theirs, what they're supposed to claim. You need to look into that document and find out what they are to legally claim. Okay, so in the UK, if you have underage children, like they're under 18 years old, like, you could still put everything that you want to leave to them, like in a will and then in a trust, so then you can say exactly what they're supposed to get at what age, and they'll follow that. The legal guardians over your children will then follow that document you know, because some parents will say, okay, by the time you're 18, you should get this amount of money, and then by the time you are 21, because you're going to uni by that time, or you're in you're in college, or you're planning to go to uni by that time, they should release this amount for you. And then they'll say again, release this amount at 25, and then at 30, release this amount, and then the remainder left over, like what should be released. And then if it's a business, if it's a company, they should, what I found out that is if you have more than one child, it's better for you to, rather than just leaving the company to one child to oversee everything, you should actually divide it in terms of shares. So for example, a limited company, you get 100 shares. So if you have 2 children, like myself, I have 2 children, my son and my daughter. Shout out to David Ohinifrimpa and Sarah Ecowood, if you watch this video. Now, my business is 2 companies merged together when it comes to the business platform, but it's 2 companies. So when I'm leaving them in a will and in a trust, I would say David takes 50% of Little Ones All Things Baby Limited, and Sarah takes 50% of Little Ones All Things Baby Limited. And then I'll say David takes 50% of M&F Boutique, Sarah take 50% of M&F Boutique, and so on and so forth with all the other companies the same once they are registered, legally registered. Okay, because not all my companies are not legally registered yet at the moment. Okay, but we're working on that. So yeah. So that's how. So then that law prevents family members from coming into your children's life and claiming what you've left for your children in the name of, oh, your dad was my aunt, your dad was my sister, your dad was my brother, or your mom was my sister, your dad was this my son, or your mother was my daughter, and so on and so forth. That stops the family feud, basically, okay, and allows your children to have exactly what they need, what you've left to them, so that they are not left poor, they are not left without any resources to take care of themselves. So that is why it's very, very important to legally leave your businesses to your children. It's not enough to just say it, whether you're in Great Britain or you're in Africa. It's not enough for you to just say it with your mouth to your children, whether they're younger as you're growing up. Because as we were growing up, my dad used to always say, oh, I'm going to leave this to this one, I'll leave this to this one, and we know. However, we don't know if it's in a will, if it's documented. You understand? So, if he passed away, we don't know what each one of us is entitled to, or if we're even entitled to anything, like to get anything. So yeah. So that hopefully he's left it in a written will, whatever his decision is. But not leaving a will and a trust for your children leaves them in a very awkward position. So that is the implication. That is why you find that children who have lost their parents all of a sudden are poor. They're living with relatives and they're treated in a very, very poor manner, in a manner which is not even like, it shouldn't be done. Like, it shouldn't be the case, Like all of a sudden, children who were from a well-to-do background, now they're suffering because their parents didn't legally leave assets for them. They thought they left them stuff, but because they don't have documents to back what their intentions were for their children, the relatives come and they take everything. They come and they literally come and they take everything and they squander everything, and then your children are left with nothing. They're just begging, they're having to work. And if you're a wife and your husband passes away in Uganda and you don't have these legally binding documents, the family will come and they'll take literally everything from you, and you're left with absolutely nothing. They even some go to the point of even chasing you out of the home that your husband built. The home that your husband built, some of them, they even chase you out. Some family members, the male family members, would actually chase you out, leave you destitute, take your children, so like you're left with nothing, absolutely nothing. So it's important, husbands, that you do your due diligence. It's important, wives, that you also do your due diligence. That is why it's very, very important that wives don't just be a housewife, don't just be a stay-at-home mom and do absolutely nothing and know absolutely nothing to do with wealth creation. Like, I'm not saying don't cater for your children, don't cater for your husband and all of that. But in doing so, also make sure that you know finances, you are well mentally prepared and physically prepared financially, so that in case anything happens to any one of you, your children are okay. Because if you're a wife and all the financial responsibilities is upon your husband, and you don't know where the money for your bills and your household and your upkeep comes from, when he passes away, and where the assets are and what is what, and no assets in your name or anything like that, when he passes away, no matter where you are in the world, whether you're in Great Britain or Africa, when he passes away, it's not just you who's going to suffer, but it's your children who are also going to suffer, because they like to prey on the vulnerable. They like, especially when you don't know laws that governs these issues to do with assets, to do with inheritance. Even as a wife, you are supposed to have an inheritance. Like, your husband should leave you at least something, because you're taking care of the children. You as a wife, if you're doing business, like myself, when I get married, I'll put, certain, in my will, I'll include my husband and my children, so that because my husband would be the one taking care of my children, taking care of our children in case anything happens. So it's not just your money, like, your money is your money, my money is our money. It's not that. You should know what assets you have as a family. You should know where the money comes from that is used for your upkeep, and then should anything happen, you should have this discussion with your husband or with your wife. Anything should happen, this is what you do, this is what is in place, this is what, and don't leave them in the dark. Don't leave them in the dark, like them not knowing, because of tradition, because of culture. And that's another thing. Inheritance, especially in the African setting, it used to be determined by culture and by tradition. So that's why you find that if it's the man who passes away, the male, they'll take everything. If it's the woman that passes away, they'll come, they'll take their children and everything, you know. But like, it wouldn't be so much like of a dispute, because it's normally the husband who does most things. But if both of them passes away, they come and they collect everything, they squander everything, and then the children, they're looked after, but not to the standard that you'd want them to. So that is why you should legally leave what's it called, your business to your children as an inheritance. Okay, so that brings us to the end of today's video, and I shall see you all in the next live video. Have a great evening. Bye.